Me and my wife built and installed beautiful pantry cabinets in our kitchen. However, there's just one thing that keeps bugging me. From the top of the pantry to the ceiling, there's a large, awkward 6-inch gap that runs on either end that needs to be filled. Right now, it's just collecting dust and makes our kitchen look unfinished. In this video, I'll show you how I spent $150 and completely transform our pantry cabinets by installing a sleek, custom trim design. It's all DIY, and the best thing about it is you don't need any special tools, and all the material is available at the good old Home Depot. Let's flash back a couple days where I measure and cut the base trim for the pantry cabinets. I'm running 5 1/4 at the front of the pantry cabinet, and then that flooring drops to about 6 1/4 all the way to the end. Luckily off camera, I already cut and put together a base. It's a 6-inch piece of trim as like an L, and that's what I'm gonna continue to kind of build off of, and that's gonna be our main starting point. To keep the trim in place, when I set it up there, I put a 2-inch piece of trim on the backside, and it dropped at about maybe a 7/16, and that's what's gonna rest on the top of the cabinets and create a nice reveal from the top of the cabinet door to the bottom of the trim. And also went back with some corner angles to help reinforce it, because I know I was gonna be taking it on and off, and I didn't want, you know, it to break on me. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and throw it up there. Trim fits well on the top of the cabinet, but watch my finger real quick. As I go from one end to the other, there's a big gap, and that is about 1 inch. So that's one problem that I gotta fix. We're gonna have to somehow cover that, make our eyes divert away from the gap itself, but I think I have a plan to handle that. We're gonna add this. Pretty much it's just 2 pieces of wood. This is a 4-inch piece of trim, and this is a 2-inch piece of trim, kind of be layered with that 6-inch piece of trim. And then I'm gonna go ahead and push it up to the ceiling, and then we'll tackle that gap. Holy smokes. I don't have the gun. Put this corner on. Slap a little glue on it. Oh yeah. I just pushed the trim to the top of the ceiling and then hooked up my laser level, and you can already tell it's getting a little bit out of hand. I'm gonna go back with an 1.5 inch strip piece of wood and try to create some type of focal point to keep even lines in the trim so that your eye goes to the trim rather than the gap between the top of the cabinet and the bottom of the trim. There's, you know, that gap just is getting out of control. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and freehand that piece on my table saw outside. Oh boy. Man, look at that. 9/16 to 1.5 inches. We're cooked. I think this is gonna look terrible. Push this up. This would need to be lined up. No, because your eye is gonna go there. Plan B. I have one more piece of this filler strip. It's 12 foot long. I've already pushed the trim from the ceiling back down. It has the gap at the top. Plan B would be, let's put this on the top, and then I'll scribe it to the ceiling, and hopefully that blends in. I think this is it. I think this is gonna work. I really hope so. All right, that's all I got for tonight. I'm gonna check in with you guys tomorrow, finish up the top part of the trim. I think that's the way to go. I was getting it mixed up. I thought you'd notice if I changed the width at the top part of the trim rather than the bottom, so I swapped it. But once I put in that trim at the bottom, it looked absolutely garbage. I'll check in with you guys tomorrow. I'll finish the trim, caulk, and then hopefully paint it. It's the next day. I went ahead and finished the overall trim off camera. I think those little side filler pieces that I put on the side of the pantry just kind of gives it a little bit more dimension. Now it's finally time to clean the trim up. I'm gonna go ahead and sand it, caulk, and then fill in all the little nail holes, and then we're gonna get ready for paint. I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit. Before caulking and painting, I need to secure the trim in place. I'm gonna go ahead and use GRK finish head screws. I don't know whether you remember, there's a 2.5-inch little backer piece. I'm gonna run it at the top of the pantry as close to the face as I can so that you won't be able to see it from the ground when you're gonna go and actually use the pantry, and hopefully it secures it and we're good to go. This is very important because I don't want it falling on my head later on in the future. I shot a lot of brad nails in the trim, so now I gotta go back over and fill it with this Drydex spackling hole filler. It comes out of the container pink. When it's ready to be sanded and painted, it's gonna turn white. What you're gonna do is take a paint scraper and scrape the excess off, kind of hit it with a light sand, and then it'll be ready to paint. No priming involved. The paint goes right over top and the holes just blend in. I wouldn't recommend caulking the holes. There are a lot of them, and caulk tends to over time shrink. Even when you paint it, those holes will become visible again, and that's something that you don't want. So let's go ahead and start filling these holes. All the nail holes are filled, and I went back with 180 grit sandpaper just to kind of scuff up the trim. Now let's move on to caulking. For this project, I'm gonna use this Dynaflex 230. This stuff does provide your project the most amount of movement, especially as the seasons go on. There's gonna be a lot of expanding and contracting, and that bond's gonna last for a very long time compared to like the Alex Plus. I also use this stuff on baseboard and interior doors, so this isn't a bad product, don't get me wrong. However, this stuff will do the job. I'm looking just to set it and forget it. There's gonna be a ton of traffic back and forth, especially in the kitchen area. I just know that this stuff will last a long time. It is a little bit more pricey, this whole stuff. The Dynaflex will run you about $6 to $7 a tube, or you can get this around $4.50 a tube, the Alex Plus. It's just up to you. Both products are great. I'm gonna get this into the gun and we'll start shooting. What I normally do before sticking the caulk in the gun is just take a razor blade knife and cut a very small tip, almost the same size of that little rod that comes on the caulk gun. It's just barely gonna fit in. What I've learned is the smaller hole, the better. What you don't wanna do is just cut a massive side tip at an angle. That's a no-no. You're gonna go through a lot of caulk and it's just gonna get messy. I also have a bucket filled with water and a sponge, and that's just gonna make sure everything's clean. As you see, I'm gonna go ahead and run a line of caulk, press it in with my finger, then go back with a sponge and wipe it. I'm just gonna keep rinsing and repeating that all the way around the trim until all the seams are completely filled. I'm gonna need to take these doors off. I'm having a hard time caulking the very end of the trim, and then where the doors meet, I can't fit the caulk gun in there enough to be able to run my finger through, wipe it down. So let's just take the top doors off. So much better. The caulk is on and it needs to dry. One downside using the Dynaflex 230 is it takes around 2 hours to dry compared to like the Alex Plus, which you're probably good to paint in the next like 30 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is kind of speed run this process. I'm gonna set up a fan. While I have that going, I'm gonna leave and go over to Home Depot, and in the paint section, I'm gonna bring with me just a leftover door or a piece of trim that matches our current cabinet colors. What they're gonna do is take a sample and they're gonna paint match the exact color and finish of the doors so that trim can match the overall pantry cabinets and everything blends in. So I'll see you in about an hour. I just got back from Home Depot and I got the paint. I'm looking to match this cabinet grade finish. Obviously this is shot out of a paint sprayer, so the finish is like glass compared to brush marks. However, I think I can match it with a brush and also a foam roller. When trying to pick out the foam roller or what you want, just read the packaging. It'll say what it's for. Like it'll say doors and cabinets, it'll say walls, it'll say a textured finish on a wall. So there's a bunch of different applications for this, but this is specifically for doors and cabinets. So the game plan is to get in all the tight areas with the brush and then go back and finish it with the roller. Something I also did off camera was just tape everywhere, prepping for paint. And I also tackled this little corner piece. It was about a 6-inch gap from the cabinets to the wall. I went ahead and just kind of backfilled it with a little bit of leftover trim and then put another 6-inch piece of board to fill that gap. Filled in the nail holes, caulked it, and that's also ready for paint. So we're just gonna knock this all out in one go. Coat 1 is in the books. I'm gonna go ahead and let it dry. Do a quick little light sand to knock off any little high spots or anything that got caught up in the paint. Do another coat, so 2 coats in total. Then I'll put the doors back on, take off the tape, and we'll do a final reveal. All right, there we have it. Put it back on the doors, rip the tape off. Everything looks very clean. Really happy how it turned out. It was such an eyesore in the beginning. Let me know if you can actually see that gap still. I think it blends in well. You can't really even see it. There's a lot of other stuff going on, so you don't focus at the very top of the ceiling, which is awesome. That's what I was hoping for. If you're interested in how to trim out doors that the drywall over exceeds the jamb, or maybe the jamb over exceeds the drywall, a bunch of different ways that you can tackle that. I actually just installed trim on our interior doors, so I'll leave that video right here. But again, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.